Welcome to the Live Fit podcast with your host, Glenn Johnson. Today you will learn techniques for permanent weight loss and improved overall health.
Yes, this is the Live Fit podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Johnson. We're in episode 25 now. Today, I'm going to talk about electrolytes and hydration. This is a live talk I gave to a running club at a shoe store called Foot Traffic in Portland, Oregon. Again, it's about 25 minutes long, and it concludes with a question and answer period. I know some of you might not think that knowing about electrolytes and hydration is important to you if you're not an athlete or if you're just low level into fitness and you do some Zumba classes now and then. But I'd like to explain to you in this talk why I think it is important for you to understand and recognize. Before I get on with my talk, I want to tell you about a new program I have. I'm really excited about it. It's called the Live Fit Lean 28-Day Weight Loss Solution. And this is a program that is designed to really kick-start your fat loss right away, to get it moving and keep it moving. I'm going to give you a meal plan, recipes for that meal plan, a shopping list, a snack list, and an exercise program, all to last you the entire 28 days, 4 weeks. Now, believe it or not, the cost of this program is only $67, my introductory price. The price will go up. But for you, my loyal podcast listener, I'm going to give you an additional 20% off. Just go to livefitlean.com. You'll see a checkout button. Click on that, and then there will be a window that says coupon code. You will enter podcast, and you will save 20%. That brings it down to about $53. You can't beat that. A full meal plan, recipes for that meal plan, snack list, shopping list, and exercises, all for a whole month. And this will, I promise you, if you follow the program, knock off 8 to maybe 12 pounds of body fat while maintaining your muscle mass. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about is this podcast I'm bringing to you. It's really important to me. I love doing it. I love spreading the word of health and fitness and helping people become the best they can be physically and get rid of those ailments that make them feel bad. Just the things that make them feel crummy, the poor foods, the possibility of getting diabetes, cardiovascular disease, all those things can be avoided in most cases with eating and exercising properly. And my hope, my goal through this podcast is to help as many people as I can. Actually, more specifically, I want to help 1 million people, but I need you to help me with that. If you care about health and fitness and you join my goal in trying to spread it to as many people as possible, maybe directly some loved ones of yours, please tell your friends. But also, what you can do directly to help this podcast is to leave a review, because that's how it gets listed higher on the search in iTunes and Stitcher. If I get enough people to leave a review of the show, it will move up and more people will see it. If not, it's down at the bottom into oblivion. I've had a pretty good download. It's been pretty stable lately, but I want to give it a bump. I want it to shoot up another couple hundred people a day. Whatever I can, I want to bring those reviews up so more people see it. So, real simple way to do it. You can go to iTunes or you can go to Stitcher Radio. The easiest way to do that would be livefitlean.com/iTunes or /Stitcher. That will take you directly to my page. Please leave an honest review. I want to see as many people as I can get on there and leave a review. Okay, before I get on with my talk about electrolytes and hydration, I want to give a little disclaimer that this was recorded live. I had my recording device in my breast pocket of my shirt, so you're going to hear some movement noises from my cloth. You're also going to hear some stray noises from the audience. There's about 55 or 60 people there. There's some coughing, there's some talking, there's even a car driving by, maybe an airplane. There's a really great Q&A session at the very end, so please do listen all the way to the end, because I'll bet you some of your questions are the same as they asked as well. All right, let's get on with the show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, all right. We're back at the Northeast Foot Traffic. We've got a beautiful day out there. We've got 9 to 10 miles to complete, but first, like I said in the emails, we got a little hydration nutrition talk. So we have Glenn Johnson here. He's a health and nutrition instructor at PCC, as well as a health coach and an avid endurance athlete himself. So he's going to come up here and talk to you guys a little bit about some key things about hydration and electrolytes. So come on up, Glenn.
I think I'm going to use this thing so you can all see me. There's some people
Get a little bit of ankle.
hiding way in the back. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
You guys are great. Wish I could get my classes to do this. As Morgan said, I teach at PCC, and I've taught some classes at some universities around here, a class here or there. But I'm also a health coach. I have a business called Live Fit where I help people with weight management, health coaching, and just kind of get healthy all together. But the main reason I'm here is because I've had an extensive amount of experience with hydration and electrolyte balance and the importance of it. And I'm hoping I can convince some of you naysayers about drinking and exercise to sort of see the light. I've had several clients over the past who won't drink when they exercise. They drink very little throughout the day. They have nothing but coffee or soda, things like that. I'm sure none of you are quite to that extreme, but maybe you know somebody and perhaps you can impart some of your wisdom on them and maybe refer them to me so I can do the same thing. Now, let me start off by telling you a story. I did my first bike race. I'm a cyclist, by the way. I run occasionally, but cycling is my true passion. I did my first bike race in 2006. It was called the Race Across Oregon. It was a 535-mile race. I did it as a team with one other person, and we would relay off back and forth about an hour riding each. Well, in late July in eastern Oregon, you can expect it to be pretty hot. Well, we just happened to be having a heat wave. Only 3 days all summer did we have this heat wave, but the temps were up in the triple digits. At one point, it got up to 114. That's very hot. You're riding your bike out there, not quite every day, all day, because you get to come in about every hour and get some air conditioning in the van that's following us along. But it got really hot. So as an exercise physiologist, I knew academically that I needed to drink a lot. I needed to push fluids much more than the comfort zone, much more than I'd be used to running in a temperature like we're having today. I also knew that electrolytes were very important. I had a product called Endurolytes, and I was taking about 4 of those every hour and drinking 2 to 3 bottles an hour. The time I spent in the van was all drinking. I would put a mix of Heed inside my bottle or Perpetuum inside my bottle. Those are Hammer Nutrition products. And that's how I was getting my fuel. I didn't eat anything solid because that would take energy and actually water to digest. Well, I did a pretty good job. I felt really sick and dehydrated towards late afternoon, but my teammate was worse. He felt horrible. He would have a hard time standing up. But as you know, riding a bike, you get to sit. Well, the trouble is he was unable to hold his fluids down. Every time he'd take a sip, he would barf. He got on the bike and he's riding, he's taking a sip of water, barfing. He's in the van, taking a sip of water, barfing. He couldn't even hold food, like wet foods like grapes or watermelon. Nothing. None of that. So this went on for a good 12 hours. They finally had to put him into a hospital and they gave him 4 bags of saline solution, IV. So he was out of the race. I ended up finishing the race by myself. So I rode about half of it, 250 miles or so by myself. The reason I was able to do that was because I kept pushing those fluids. It was very uncomfortable, but throughout the night when it cooled down, I kept drinking 2 to 3 bottles an hour, and by morning I was feeling superhuman. It was fantastic. Something about a new day and the sun rising. So let's shift gears. A year later, a woman died from drinking too much water. She was in a radio contest called Your Wee for a Wee. Has anybody ever heard this? Yeah. She drank 2 gallons of water in 3 hours. The challenge was to drink as much water as you could without going wee. Well, she almost won, except she died. And it sounds funny, and it is in a sense, but it's really not funny to her family or to her. And I don't know if they gave her the wee or not, or her family the wee. It'd be nice if the kids at least got some sort of consolation prize. So she died of water intoxication, or also what's technically known as hyponatremia. Has anybody here heard of that? And that's the excuse a lot of athletes give me for why they're not drinking what I would consider enough water, because they don't want to die of water intoxication. These stories are very rare, but they're shocking and people remember them. In fact, in my alma mater, there was a kid who was trying to get in a fraternity, and they had him do shot glasses of water. Yeah, I know. Seriously? Supposedly. The police checked it out, and so did the officials. But he did a bunch of shot glasses of water and died also of water intoxication. Not the kind of death you would expect at a frat. So what happens? Does anybody know why? What's happening physiologically in your body that you can die of too much water? Yes, you're exactly right. Your body has a certain balance, well, of everything. It loves everything to be within a certain range. Your glucose, your water, your electrolytes, many other things, your temperature. And if it falls above or below those, problems start happening. Now, when your electrolytes dip below its optimal level, the water is no longer able to transfer, depending on the intensity or the amount that it's out. The water cannot transfer as readily between the cells or through the cell walls and out of the cell walls. So what happened with this woman who died of water intoxication is the water could not get inside her cells. She had too little sodium, in particular, other electrolytes play a factor, but mostly sodium, to assist that transfer. So she had a lot of water gathering on the outside of the cells, which is not so bad if it's your arms or your legs, but it goes throughout the body. The brain. She had a lot of water built up in her skull, and that was pushing against the brain, and that's where the problems come in. Now, there are certain extremes to this and to lesser degrees. Some of the symptoms of water intoxication are headache, nausea, vomiting, muscle cramps, lethargy, restlessness, disorientation, and depressed reflexes. So she was experiencing all of these, and I don't know the chain of events that happened with this woman. I imagine they took her to the hospital, but I do know that the DJs were commenting on it and kind of laughing about whether, because she was acting a little bit dingy and disoriented, and they were sort of making fun of this, and at one point they said, I wonder if this is going to be a problem, can you die of too much water? Ha 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 ha, we should have checked into this beforehand. Yeah, well, they got fired. So the reason this happened was because though she had plenty of sodium in her system for a normal hydration level, when you add water to that, of course, the solution dilutes. And so therefore, she didn't have enough sodium for the amount of water she had in her system. Do we know what all the electrolytes are? How many are there? There's more than one. Salt is the main one. It's the most important, but there are others. Yes. Potassium, magnesium, chloride. No, not zinc. Bicarbonate, phosphate, and sulfate. Calcium? Did we say calcium? There's 8 of them. There's 8 of them. So in order of importance, sodium, potassium, chloride, calcium, magnesium, bicarbonate, phosphate, and sulfate. In that order. Now, for most people, just having enough, just eating a regular diet is going to give you enough of these electrolytes. Up to about an hour of exercise, heavy sweating. Actually, it doesn't even have to be exercise. It could be out in your backyard, mowing the lawn, doing some gardening, sweating a lot. If you were to spend an hour in a sauna sweating, which I don't recommend you stay that long, you would lose quite a bit of these electrolytes. And you're probably in there drinking water because you would feel extremely thirsty after that amount of time. But it's the sweating that causes it. So if you're running or sweating and you're drinking water because you're thirsty, obviously that's something you want to do. You don't want to become dehydrated. But you are losing these electrolytes the whole time. If you're not putting them back in, you will eventually come across a problem. Now, how many of you run for more than an hour? Holy cow. That's quite a few of you. About 35% of marathoners come in hyponatremic. And in fact, Ironman competitors in Hawaii come in hyponatremic and dehydrated. Yeah, so they're not drinking enough water, but they're losing way more salt to keep their balance proper. Now, that doesn't mean they die. That just means they have some sort of signs of it, and they need to rehydrate and resupply their electrolyte balance. So how do you know if you have enough electrolytes? I know, it's pretty tough. We don't have gauges on our body to show us these levels. It would be awesome, wouldn't it? Blood glucose, electrolyte, water balance, that would make things a lot easier, like gauges on your car. I wish we had that. But we don't. So basically, experimentation. Now, before I did the race across Oregon, well, I only had a month to do this because that's how long I had before I decided to sign up. I went out and I practiced and practiced and practiced my nutrition, my hydration, and my electrolyte balance. Now, if you come back for a run or some other exercise and you have salt stains on your clothes, you're probably getting too much electrolytes. Yeah, too much. Though, not really a problem. You're just getting more than you need. I've never heard of that being a problem other than water retention, and if you have high blood pressure, of course, you want to limit it to that. Limit your sodium intake. But remember, there's more electrolytes than just salt. On the other hand, if you start experiencing cramps, headaches, more difficult to move than you think it should be, you know yourselves, you know how fast you can run and how it feels. If you start feeling really kind of weak and just don't have enough energy, that very well could be because of your electrolyte balance. Because not only do electrolytes control the passage of water through the cell walls, but they also control the electrical impulses. That's why they're called electrolytes. The electrical impulses throughout the body, down your nerves, through the cells, into the muscles, and they help the muscles contract. So what happens when you get muscle cramps is you're not getting the proper electrolytes and or water and or electrical impulses to those muscles, and they grip and they hold. Because it's really those impulses and the electrolytes that allow them to release, calcium in particular. Now, even for a run or a workout that's longer than an hour, you don't need, it's not a great need to put in these other electrolytes because you probably have enough stored. And as far as calcium goes, your body will take it from your bones. You probably don't want that. So once again, I do recommend supplementing with electrolytes. I really like Endurolytes. They sell those here. They're pretty expensive, but there's been a lot of scientific research that goes into how much you need. Now, Hammer Nutrition says you need less sodium than other people say you need. So they have a lower amount of sodium than you'll find, but I found them to be incredibly effective. I'll take, on a hot day, 4 an hour. So when I was doing the RAO, I was taking actually 4 to 6 an hour. And I could tell whether I had enough or not by muscle cramping. And that's my gauge. If I'm out there and I'm working at a high level, and when I'm fit, this is not so at the beginning of the season when I first start upping my training, upping my mileage and intensity. But if I'm already there and I start experiencing cramps, boom, I'll take some electrolytes, and within 15-20 minutes the cramps go away. Now, you can get it through other sources, salt. There's these things called thermotabs. You usually have to ask the pharmacist for them because they don't generally sell them on the shelves. But they're salt tablets, they're electrolyte tablets, and they're way cheaper than Endurolytes. You get 90 for about $5, where Endurolytes are, what, 20 bucks for that bottle? And I'm not saying those aren't worth it, but the thermotabs are much more economical, and I take about 1 an hour, and those work really great. Does anybody here supplement with electrolytes? Now, Hammer Nutrition has a proper electrolyte balance in their products. So the Perpetuum, the Heed, their bars, their gels, they all have electrolytes, and that's about all you'll need. Now, I don't want to go into nutrition in this topic, today, because that's going to take a little bit too long, but do know that Hammer Nutrition is excellent for that, and they do not have sugar. And sugar will actually draw water out of your body as you're trying to digest it. So we really want to keep our sugar level down because it does interfere with hydration. So do some medications. Ibuprofen for one. How many of you take ibuprofen before a run? Really? Just one of you? That's surprising. Okay, a couple. Oh, you didn't want to raise your hands. Gotcha. It's fairly common. People who run, they know that ibuprofen decreases inflammation, takes away some of the pain, maybe allows you to get through the run better, go longer, go harder. Certainly makes a lot of sense, but there's also been studies that show that it does interfere with your hydration level. Personally, I've never had a problem with it, but everybody's a little bit different. Some people are more sensitive to certain things. Now, I told you the symptoms of hyponatremia, and they're very similar to dehydration. Dehydration is extreme thirst, irritability, confusion, those are the same, dry skin and mucous membranes, little or no urination. If your urine is dark, that is a clear indicator that you're not drinking enough. Women, how do you know? Because it dilutes as soon as it hits the water. Get a piece of white paper and have that as your background so you can see the color better. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit tricky, but do what you have to do. Another way to know if you're getting enough water, weigh yourself before and after a run. 16 ounces weighs a pound. So if you're a pound lighter after a run, you're down about 16 ounces. Now, that's not that big of a deal, but a 2% loss of body water from optimal amount will decrease your performance by about 10%. So another reason why you're out there running and you just start feeling sluggish and it's hard to keep going, you probably have some dehydration or electrolyte loss. Probably both. So we do want to push those fluids. I know a lot of you have those little water packs, or maybe you have other than water in there. Fantastic. When I was doing a lot of running, they didn't have that. I had to carry a bike water bottle. It's just a bother. I hated it. I tried the little belt things and it's flopping all around because it's too big and that round shape is difficult to hold. So I love what they have here. Do drink. Do drink. The kind of rule of thumb is an hour. If you're going longer than an hour, you should be drinking. Does that mean you start after an hour? No. All the way through. All the way through. You drink and ingest a little bit of fuel, certainly some electrolytes, for that entire hour. My rule of thumb is about a bottle of water every hour. When I'm out on a ride on a day like today, I'll go through about one bottle in an hour. Sometimes a little bit less if I'm doing a shorter ride. But if it's hotter, more. Certainly 2 bottles is not out of the question on a very hot day. Some of the other symptoms of dehydration, and this one is a really good way, other than the scale, this is my second best way to tell if you have any degree of dehydration. If you stop sweating, you're in trouble. That's a situation where you need to remove yourself from that environment and start drinking an electrolyte solution. Well, let me tell you one more thing. The best way to get water to absorb through the gut wall and into the cells is for it to accompany or have electrolytes with it and some glucose or some carbohydrates. Complex carbs are a little bit better. And cold water absorbs more quickly than lukewarm, room temperature, or even warm water. You would think warm water closer to body temperature would, but that's just not the case. So cold water, which is what you want anyways. So don't avoid cold water thinking it will take longer to get into your body. So electrolytes, carbohydrates, and cold helps water get into your body quicker. Now, quick little way you can tell if you're any level of dehydration is to pinch the back of your hand, pinch the skin, and let go. Does it snap back or does it hold its shape pinched up? It's true that as a person ages, their skin loses elasticity. But if you do this on a fairly regular basis, you will know what's normal and what's not. Now, let me caution you, if you do it in the morning, you're dehydrated because you haven't been drinking all night. Maybe. You probably haven't been drinking water all night. And just breathing, you lose water. Water comes off of your skin in vapors as you sleep. You might even use the restroom. So you're losing water. So wait till midday or later in the day to pinch your skin just to see what normal is for you. And then when you're out on a run or afterwards, you can pinch and you can see, and you can compare that to what normal is. So to know if you're dehydrated, weigh yourself before and after, pinch your skin. For every pound down, make sure you drink some water in. Now, you want to start drinking even before an event. I would avoid the hour before because that might interrupt your run. But up until an hour before, drink, 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 drink. What about caffeine? I love caffeine before a ride. It makes the difference between a slow, sluggish, dreary, difficult ride and one that is just kick-ass and really fun. Huge difference. Huge. It is a bit of a diuretic, but the thing is, if you're drinking it with water, like coffee and tea, and drink some water in additionally, it's not going to make you more dehydrated. Now, if you take the caffeine pills and you're not drinking enough water to overcome that amount of dehydration, then it could become a problem. But most people I know don't take the no-dose, not since I got out of college. So how do we treat water intoxication? And the problem is that it does look a lot like dehydration. So dehydration, obviously, you push fluids, some electrolytes. But with water intoxication, you absolutely do not want to give them more. But you do want to give them electrolytes. You might give them some sips of water. That's where I would definitely recommend the salt pills, whatever kind you use. Something really salty like chips or pretzels would also work. You might need to wash it down a little with a teeny tiny bit of water. Those would work. In extreme cases, absolutely get them to a hospital. Absolutely. Also, extreme cases of dehydration, you want to get to the hospital. Cool them down, give them lots of fluids. Gatorade works in a pinch. It's not my number one choice. I like the Hammer because they do not use sugar. Gatorade is a little bit too sweet, has too much sugar. You can have some, but I wouldn't recommend quite that much. If you want Gatorade or one of those other sports drinks, dilute it with water. So the number one reason to pay attention to your hydration and your electrolyte balance at an amateur level is your performance. At a professional level or a competitive level is also your performance. In extreme cases, they'll both kill you. I don't think anybody here is going to have that problem unless you're totally psycho and ignore everything that me and other people have said. That just doesn't happen that often, but I want you to be aware of it. It can happen, so don't ignore the signs. Okay, tips to stay hydrated. Drink before your activity or before going out and sweating. Carbs and sodium help the water absorb more quickly into your body. Practice, practice, practice. Do not experiment at an important event. A race, a long run, a marathon, do not experiment then. The time to experiment is during your training. And do experiment. I recommend keeping a log. Write things down. How much you drank before, during, and after. Kind of give a subjective view of how you feel. If you can put some objective information in there like your weight, that is great. All these things add up. Keep a log so you know what you've done, what worked, what didn't work, and you'll do a lot better in your events. Once again, the color of your urine. Avoid medications. And avoid alcohol 24 hours before an important event. I've noticed that even one beer within 24 hours drops my power and my enthusiasm, my ability to dig deep into the farthest reaches of my energy, the energy in my bones to put it out. It drops it down about 10%. I've noticed this time and time and time again. Oh, one beer with dinner the night before a bike race? It's a big deal. It's a big deal. If it's important to you, do everything you can. So once again, my name's Glenn Johnson. I have a business called Live Fit. I have some cards. If anybody wants to talk to me about sports nutrition, hydration, electrolytes, weight management, has anybody who's interested in any of those things, come talk to me. If you have any questions now, I'm open. Yes, in the white hat.
What about coconut water?
That's fantastic. It is almost the same as your blood as far as the sodium solution.
Okay.
That's great. It has a little bit of carbohydrates in there as well. Fantastic, and it tastes great.
Especially when you're really thirsty and need it.
Oh, man. It tastes good even when you're not. So anything tastes good when you're super thirsty. Yes?
You talked about being dehydrated when you first wake up. Do you recommend drinking a bunch of water when you first wake up?
First thing I do when I wake up is I drink a pint of water. And I even put it on the counter the night before. I have my little pile, because I get up early and everybody else is asleep. So I have my clothes and stuff and my little pile of things that I need to take with me. So I put the water right there. I wake up, and while the water's boiling, drink that water. Yep, very important. Yes, sir.
I was planning on eating an apple today while I run. Is this not a good thing?
Have you ever eaten an apple before while you run?
No, it was an experiment.
Go for it. I don't like apples during intense physical activity because they're a little bit hard to digest because of the fiber. It upsets my stomach a bit. Not a big deal. If I'm doing something moderate, no problem. But the more intense, the more it matters. The longer, the more it matters. I've seen so many people drop out of races because of hydration, electrolytes, or nutrition. In fact, pretty much that's the reason why everybody drops out of long races. So bananas are super good. Oranges are not bad either because they have a lot of fluid in there, and of course you're getting the sugar. It's apples, experiment. It might work for you, might not. Yes, ma'am.
What other sources of potassium besides bananas?
You know, bananas do not actually have that much potassium, more than most other foods, but potatoes, white potatoes, are about 3,000 milligrams, where bananas are only about 200. Yeah, huge. What's so funny about white potatoes?
French fries.
There's certain foods that go into my mind when I'm on a long, hard ride and I want to get home, and that's what drives me home. Watermelon is my number one. If it's cold, soup, but French fries are definitely on there. Anybody else? Okay, once again, I have some cards. If you have any more questions, feel free to call or email. Have a great run.
I just released a brand new program based on client feedback. It will help you jumpstart your weight loss goals for